I've come to Sparrowpit this morning because today I'm going to be exploring a lot more of the industrial part of the Peak District. Now, most of the peak falls within the national park boundary, but there is an awful lot that's not included within the park because of the industry. So some of those areas I should be exploring today. The quaintly named hamlet of Sparrowpit nestles in a windswept spot on a high shoulder where the road from Winnett's Pass meets the A623, which runs between Chapel-en-le-Frith and Chesterfield. The gritstone houses seem to try to shelter behind the hillside to avoid the wind, for there is little natural shelter here. The only amenity is a pub, the Wanted Inn. Crossed out of the national park at Slack Hall and headed towards the Peak District's more industrial areas. I came to Chapel-en-le-Frith, dubbed the capital of the Peak District. This small town was established by the Normans in the 12th century, originally as a hunting lodge within the Forest of High Peak. This led to the French-derived name of Chapel-en-le-Frith, meaning chapel in the forest. The population of Chapel, as locals commonly refer to it, was 8,635 in the 2011 census. For some years, Chapel was the location of the High Peak Borough Council offices. The town has several public houses, hotels and guest houses, a tea room, a golf club, a cricket club and a football club. High Peak Radio, independent local radio for High Peak and the Hope Valley, broadcasts from studios just off the High Street. Chapel Milton lies on the outskirts of Chapel-en-le-Frith, on the road leading to Chinley and Glossop. It is notable for the magnificent splitting double railway viaduct crossing the Black Brook. One section of the viaduct diverges and curves to the west, while the other curves to the east as the line, coming up from the south, links up with a main line between Sheffield and Manchester. The viaducts now carry considerable loads of quarried stone from the works around Buxton. This is a nice little stroll. I think I might get some decent views up here. 3 miles west of Chapel-en-le-Frith is Eccles Pike. This isolated hill consists of gritstone, pink in colour at the summit. The name Pike means pointed hill, but it's not known how it acquired the name Eccles, or whether this name relates to the town on the other side of Manchester, famous for its currant cakes. Yeah, not bad at all. At 370 metres high, Eccles Pike offers good views of the Kinderscout Plateau to the east and Manchester to the west. Well, it's really pleasant on the top of Eccles Pike here. I tend to come to this part of the Peak District more in work time because the job I do involves me going all over Derbyshire. And this part of the Peak District I come to more for work than I do in my own time. So it's actually nice to come here in my own time and appreciate it a lot more. The small hamlet of Coombs lies off the Chapel to Whaley Bridge road. It nestles in a sheltered valley between Ladder Hill and Coombs Edge. Once largely a farming community, it's now a popular place for Manchester commuters because of its good road and rail communications. The village centres around the Beehive Inn, while to the north lies Coombs Reservoir, which supports the local sailing club. To the east, the village is overshadowed by Castle Naze, a gritstone crag at the peak of Coombs Edge, which provides great views across Chapel and the surrounding area. This was also one of the crags where rock climbing was pioneered, and it is still popular with local climbers. Moved on to Whaley Bridge, a former mill village centred around the River Goyt, which runs through the village. It first came to prominence as the terminus of the High Peak Canal, built at the end of the 18th century to carry limestone from the quarries above Chapel-en-le-Frith to Manchester and beyond. This was originally serviced by the High Peak Tramway, a primitive railway built in the 1780s, which linked the quarries at Doveholes with the main canal basin at nearby Bugsworth. Furness Vale is a village split by the A6 and the Peak Forest Canal, constructed between 1794 and 1804. This narrow locked artificial waterway runs for 15 miles between Whaley Bridge and Ashton-under-Lyne. It links the Ashton Canal with the tramways that brought limestone from the Peak District quarries. Later that afternoon, I came to New Mills, a former mill town at the junction of the rivers Goyt and Set. New Mills looks like a typical mill town, with a centre a warren of narrow streets and stone-built cottages. A range of local industry still thrives. One former mill makes Swizzle's Love Heart sweets, and other firms are involved in engineering, quarrying, textiles and computer software. Well, even though New Mills is another busy industrial Peak District town, if you take the time out to walk off some of the side streets, it's surprising what you find. Where the River Set joins the Goyt is an area of hard sandstone called Woodhead Hill Rock, and the combined river has carved a spectacular gorge 30 metres deep called the Torrs. The river offered plenty of water power to early industrialists, and from the 1780s onwards a series of cotton mills were constructed alongside the river. The first of these was Torrs Vale Mill, which still stands and only closed in 2000, having been used continuously for over 200 years. The Torrs Millennium Walkway overlooking the mill was built by Derbyshire County Council's in-house engineers at a cost of just over £500,000. The walkway was opened in April 2000, spanning the otherwise inaccessible cliff wall above the Goyt. Part rises above the riverbed on stilts, and part is cantilevered off the railway retaining wall. New Mills was practically cut in two by the Torrs, and the only crossing involved a tortuous descent down to a bridge just above the river level, followed by an equally hard ascent the other side. In 1884, the 94-foot high Union Road Bridge was constructed across the centre of the gorge. Viewed from river level, it looks very impressive and was constructed out of the rock from the Torrs itself. I think this is a really pleasant walk, and if you're driving in and out of New Mills, unless you take the time to park your car and walk around, you wouldn't actually know this is here. Bugsworth Basin is at the terminus of the Peak Forest Canal. It is located in the valley of the Black Brook near Whaley Bridge. Work on the restoration of the derelict basin began in 1968 and was eventually reopened to boat traffic in 2005 after a £1.2 million restoration undertaken by British Waterways, working with the Inland Waterways Protection Society. Work included sealing the bottom of the basin to stop leakage, stonework repair and environmental measures to conserve the site's protected water vole population. Well, even though I'm just right beside the A6, this is still a pleasant spot to end this tour of this part of the Peak District today. Bugsworth is where the Peak Forest Canal actually ends, but strangely enough, the canal doesn't go as far as Peak Forest. Anyway, a really nice day today, and I'm going to finish off with a drink in the navigation. So that's my tour of the Peak District within its more industrial region. I would say that, without any hesitation, it's as impressive in its own way as the area inside the national park boundary.